In order to capture the most realistic real-life 3D effects in our 2D sketching, we have to incorporate the principles of perspective. Here's how it's done. We're going to draw a sketch of this box. It's an ordinary tissue box. It's a rectangular prism in geometric shape and object terminology. And it's 9 inches wide, 5 inches deep, and 3 inches high. Right? That's 9 inches wide, 5 inches deep, and 3 inches high. In perspective drawing, we utilize the idea of a horizon line and vanishing points. So, I'm going to arbitrarily establish my horizon line right here along my orthographic grid paper. This is ordinary grid paper. It has vertical lines and horizontal lines. This will aid us in creating our perspective sketch. I need to, in addition to establishing the horizon line, I need to establish what's called a vanishing point. I'm going to arbitrarily establish my vanishing point here on the horizon line toward the left edge of my drawing. I next need to establish a starting point for the front view of my drawing. I'm going to pick this location here. I also need to determine what the scale of my drawing will be. I've decided to make this drawing so that 1 grid square equals 1 inch. One grid square is 1 inch in the horizontal and the vertical direction. Returning to my starting point, I remember that my box is the front of my box is a rectangle, 1, 2, 3 inches high, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches wide. Laying out my points and drawing construction lines between them, I create the image of the front face of the box. In this version of perspective drawing, the front face is flat on and has no three-dimensional effects. Now, I need to create the image for the top, and in this case, the left side of my box. The idea of perspective tells us that as things move away from us, they appear to get smaller and smaller until, if they were on the horizon, they would disappear down to a single dot. Well, that's what the vanishing point represents. And so as the edges of our object are moving away from us, receding away from us, they converge on this vanishing point. Now, this is a tricky method of sketching because I have to draw quite a distance and estimate so that I can arrive at my vanishing point with a fairly straight construction line. Another aspect of perspective drawing is going to require us to utilize a sense of proportion and some guesswork in determining how to draw the depth of the object. If the object were drawn to its full depth, remember it's 5 inches deep. Utilizing a little tape measure that I made for myself by lining up a strip of paper along the grid and marking off a 0 point and each of the grid marks until I came to 9, the maximum measurement for my box, I can place this along the vanishing line here, the diagonal line that represents the left side of the object, and I see that that would make the object look very deep. This seems distorted and out of proportion to me. So here's where a bit of the guesswork comes into play. Instead, I'm going to shorten that depth up utilizing a measurement of 3 inches. This is not the same as the 3 inches for the height. I'm just using 3 inches because it seems to provide a better proportion for my drawing. All right, having measured and drawn in that vertical line, I can now complete the outline for my sketch by drawing a horizontal line, which coincidentally lines up with the grid line, until it meets the vanishing line along the top right side of the object. And there you have it. Going over my construction lines to turn them into object lines, starting and stopping at the corners of the object itself. Completes my image. Because there is only one vanishing point used in creating this particular drawing, this type of drawing is known as one-point perspective. Not bad. Suppose we wanted to incorporate even more realism into our drawings. Well, let's add an additional vanishing point. Let's see how that works. Remember, we have to establish a horizon line. We're going to establish a vanishing point, and this one I'll label vanishing point 1. Then on the right side of our drawing, on the horizon line, we'll establish a vanishing point 2. In this case, we will not be drawing the front view flat on, but we do have to establish an edge, a forwardmost edge for the object. This edge will be measured full length. So I'm going to pick this as an arbitrary point to start the top of this edge, and I'm going to draw a vertical line down. Our box is 3 inches high, so counting 1, 2, 3, I can establish now the bottom front corner of my object. What happens next, you probably guessed. We're going to draw lines off to the vanishing points. Whoops, that one's a little curvy there. Okay, once again, incorporating a sense of proportion and approximate measurements into our drawing, and this time drawing the front of the object here. 9 inches certainly appears too deep. Let's say we'll make it 8. No, let's say 7. Okay? And in the other direction, instead of 5, we'll make this 4. All the remaining lines that we draw need to converge on the vanishing points. And in so doing, we create perhaps the most realistic of any 2D sketch that incorporates 3D effects. Converting our construction lines, oh, that's awful. Converting our construction lines into object lines. Completes the sketch. Because we used 2 vanishing points, this type of sketch is known as 2-point perspective. There you have it. Now, you try.